Hello friends, how are you today? Well, today I've got an astrology story for you, and it's about the destruction of the guide stones in Georgia. I did an astrology chart for the location for the exact time that the stones fell, that there was a flash of light and then boom. So it actually was at 4:03 and 33 seconds. So I did the chart for 4:03 a.m. The Sun and Sirius were at the exact degree within 7 minutes of each other at the time that it happened. So let's take a look at some of the fixed stars that were involved with this event and the sacred geometries in the chart and the meaning of the Sabian symbols. Each degree has a symbol, and there's an image that goes with it and an interpretation. So there was some pretty fascinating stuff in this chart. Let's take a look and let me show you. The first thing with this chart is that Mars and Pallas Athena were at 0 degrees. Pallas was at 0 degrees of Gemini and Mars of Taurus. So essentially at 0 degrees, it's like a new beginning for the energy. There's been a building of a previous energy, and now there's a shift. And it's interesting because Astrology just published a post going super deep into 0 degrees. If you want to check out the meaning of that, it's in her community section. Essentially, we're looking at Mars at 0, new energy, new value, right? And a lot of passion for having really nailed the value that we care about in our lives and on the earth. Because Venus has just gone through Taurus, and Venus also rules Taurus, and that's about value. So Mars has come out of Aries, powering a pioneering spirit, maybe new technologies, new projects, and it goes to Taurus, and it's ready to utilize this in a completely new way than Mars has done before, or than the incarnation of this energy or event has done before. So it shows a significant shift or change of direction. It shows a brand new way and new energy or new thinking, particularly because Pallas Athena is at 0 Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, which is about the mental plane analysis strategy. And she's a warrior. She's a warrior that backs heroes and provides them with resources. So she's also backing a new hero, backing a new story. Jupiter in Aries is square the Sun and the new moon. Now, it was at an exact, not the new moon in Sirius. Sorry, the Sun it was square the new moon and the Sun at the new moon, which recently occurred at 7 degrees. And at that time, what I mentioned in my follow-up video was that, to me, this is about breaking off the energy of that symbol at 7 degrees of Cancer, which is about people dressed in rabbit suits on a parade. And I explained in my last astrology video that there are subtle, perhaps you would call them occult meanings, but darker meanings to that energy and those symbols. And to me, Jupiter, which benefits but also expands to the point of excess, right? And so when you expand something to the point of excess, it essentially can then break off or expand out of the sphere of influence it had been in. And so to me, that is the energy that was indicated at the new moon. It was on June 28th and 29th, so just at the end of Pride Month. Okay, so the interesting thing here is that Babylon is at 12 degrees of Libra. And to me, the energy that the stones expressed and the beings behind that are really, in my mind, resonant with the energy of Babylon. It was in Libra, the sign of, balancing the scales, of justice, of weighing both sides, and conjunct the moon by 7 degrees. So there's an emotional aspect to this energy. we have some emotions about what is going on with Babylon right now. What that is the Sabian symbol for Libra 13, which is children blowing soap bubbles. And it's interesting because that's what children should be doing. They should be having imaginative play. They should be learning innocently. And instead, in our culture, we're finding adults attempting to co-opt the imagination of children and attempting to use it for their own purposes, perhaps even to serve the Babylonian agenda. Did you guys hear the bell ringing? That was kind of wild. Okay, so the sun here, which is square Babylon, is in this chart at 15 Cancer for the Sabian symbol, which is a group of people who have overeaten and enjoyed it. So again, we have the aspect of the square where the energy indicated here is that the people of Babylon have gone too far with excess related to the children, and that's what initiated this event. It was because of events involving children. That's what it appears to me in the interpretation here of the energies. So if we go over to here, if you've overeaten or overindulged or overexposed yourself, the square, it's very, very definite that this isn't a working together energy. This is a sharp, like, you're over there, I'm over here. We're going to have to, just deal with the fact that you're over there and I'm over here. And then now what? That's what squares are. Now, in a friendly space, there's a way to resolve that. But in an unfriendly space, it could be a bit tense. There's another grand square here as well, which is, you see here Mars at 0 with Metis and Pluto. Metis is the wise counselor. She's the asteroid representing that goddess. And this here is Pluto. So here's Mars to Pluto to Hygeia and Destiny in this chart. Hygeia is the asteroid of health and wellness. To Varuna, the Hindu god of justice and of the sea and of binding sinners. And then you go straight back up to Mars. So there's a renewed energy, right? And a need to access not just counseling, but maybe even deep research Pluto to really get to the heart of the matter, right? And since it's a square, it's not easy. The challenges of a square can ask us to really step up and become so much more than we were before, to expand our thinking, to raise our consciousness so that we can deal with the aspects in a positive way that the square presents. So we're looking here at a long-term effort, right? Because it takes time to learn how to manage through these challenges. And some of these challenges themselves may be long-term. Here you've got Hygeia, you've got the energy of the wise counselor, right? Getting to the heart of the matter. I mean, sometimes that's quick, but Pluto's in Saturn, which is not very fast. And Metis is in Aquarius, so which the traditional ruler was Saturn. So this could take a while, this new approach. But if it's successful, it could bring about a whole new structure, right? Because a square is also a foundational structure. That's kind of exciting. All right, so let me see what else we've got here. Okay, the key thing about the moon here is that it's one wing of this yod that I marked in orange. The point of the yod is Vesta, the sacred hearth, the sacred home, the flame that the priestess guards burning in the temple. And then here on the other side, Varuna. Okay, so the moon is also conjunct Babylon, and the degree that it is at is a person watching their ideals take concrete form before their inner vision. Isn't that interesting? It's so incredible because it's talking about concrete form. But the force of the square here, right? The force of the square And the demands of the yod call for that form, apparently, to be broken. It's almost like it's saying, no, your vision is not going to be taking concrete form. I mean, really, that's what the square is coming in here. And it's coming in from the sign of Cancer, and in particular from the sun, and the sun conjunct the star Sirius. We'll take a look at that in a second. Let's just finish up here with the yod. Let me see here. Okay, the yod is to 7 Pisces. I made notes, so that's what I'm reviewing. And listen to this. This is so amazing. Illuminated by a shaft of light, a large cross lies on rocks surrounded by sea and mist. And it's so amazing because the meaning is being able to stay firm in one's beliefs, even when one's hopes and dreams are taking a battering. So there's so many touch points here, because instead of the cross lying on the ground, there were these big slabs lying on the ground from this event. And one could say that the hopes and dreams, right, that those slabs represented, appear to be falling to dust, right, falling apart. And in fact, the entire structure was taken down. So the meaning of this, right, this symbol can be sacrifice for nothing. It could be about chaos, about misplaced loyalties. It could be losing faith, hopes dashed, suffering, scorn, persecution, and attack. So that is very intense. And some of us may feel like that was the energy that had been going on in homes, right? Through the whole lockdown process and all of these policies that were in place that have come into place since then that really don't seem like they've been helping people. But the interesting thing here is that the cross on the ground that's illuminated by a shaft of light. And it's so interesting because if you watch the video of this event, it almost looks like a shaft of light came in, and then there was an explosion at the first slab. And it's interesting because related to the cross in the image, you know, the cross represents faith to many people. And faith is shown by that symbol, but our faith isn't dependent on these symbols. Our faith is an integral part of us when one has a connection and a belief in God and a relationship with divinity in their own lives. So something that's based just on symbols, right, can lose whatever the meaning is of those symbols. The symbols in themselves aren't what carries the meaning. It's the divinity that is within every human being, living life and expressing that in human form. That is what empowers symbols. And it's the God force in us that provides that power. And we do that either unconsciously through unconscious creation or consciously through applied focus and with our emotions. And it looks to me like what's happening here is in this yod, which is the finger of God in the chart, essentially what it's pointing to is a renewal of the sacredness of the home through faith, because it is faith that keeps us strong. And when every single thing seems to be against you, it's faith that gets you to take the next step and to persevere and to succeed through miracles and through your human effort, right? We are buoyed in these times by divinity, by angels, by blessings, by grace. And all of these come with our faith and are a beautiful support to us. But Vesta is in the sign of Pisces, and there could be people who are in significant illusion or delusion still. And this is an opportunity with the intensity of each quincunx from Varuna to Vesta, and then from Vesta to the moon. It's a offer by the divine to work these energies, to break off the illusion, to rise back up into alignment, and to live that in our first home, which is the human body, and then our next home, which is the abode, the home we live in, the family we live with, the community that we are a part of. It's interesting because the Sabian symbol for Hygeia at 3 degrees of Scorpio, and we read the symbol that evolves to the next degree because the energy is expressing to that degree. It's in a devotional ritual. A youth has a lighted candle, and it's an incredibly beautiful and powerful symbol here for this dynamic energy. And in fact, it's the same symbol that Hygeia was at when the Schumann chart stopped, and I did a reading on the amazing energy at that moment, which appeared to be like a marker in that chart. So it's essentially almost as if, right, this degree is asking for a miracle of health and healing to occur for us when Hygeia is at this symbol. And it evokes the encouragement to pray, to pray to God, to work with divinity, to co-create within yourself, or to receive a miracle of health and healing, and to believe that there are miracles of healing possible for us, even if things look bleak, that are beyond our ability to even possibly imagine in the moment, but yet can occur. And over and over and over, stories are told about miracles of healing happening. I know 2 people who came straight back perfectly healed from cancer that was terminal. And in both cases, they told me that it was first spiritual. It was first spiritual that got them through. Now, every soul is different. Everybody's experience is different, and everybody's soul path is different. But it's so interesting to me that one of the things that really didn't happen during the lockdowns was our leaders, telling us to pray for miracles of healing, like people do when they have cancer. And so that's just something I've mused on, and also tried to share as much as I can with people that God is still working miracles. And there may be technologies we're unaware of. There may be, natural things that are possible. We just don't know. So when we believe it's possible, it assists that in getting created for us and for others. Okay, we're almost done here. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so the moon is conjunct a star called Zanaya, and this star, fascinatingly, is also known as the harlot, and it evokes the energy of Lilith. Now, you may remember, if you've been watching my astrology videos, that I have been talking about Lilith since last fall, because Lilith has been very angry. Not uncommon for Lilith. And she's in a square with Babylon. Lilith in a square with Babylon. Oh, that's not going to be pleasant. Okay, when that happens, that's some dramatic energy. Because here's the thing. The energy of Lilith, right, of the strong and independent woman, when you read about that on the internet, you're going to find a lot of stories that make her into this like dark, horrible, negative being. And she certainly does represent a shadow side of Lilith, but she also represents Lilith owning her darkness and her light and becoming fully independent. Lilith doesn't belong to anyone, but Lilith is a strong advocate for herself, for her people. I always think of Lilith as a queen, and a proper queen cares about what is happening to the people. And the fact is the story that I told about her was that when she conjuncted with Sedna, she learned her story and then chased the Divine Mother here and told her about the psychopathy that was affecting the children in Medea, who's now probably somewhere towards the end of Cancer here. I didn't put her in this chart. And so in my view, there's a whole story going on in the chart about the goddesses coming together to address the healing of human children. And here she is in this essentially stellium of planets, asteroids, and a key star square the moon and Babylon and the two stars that they're with. So this is very powerful, and when Lilith comes out in a square and she's upset, she very well might break something. And you can pretty well be assured of that. You're lucky if some stone is the only thing that gets broken. Oh, goodness. Okay, so abundance is also square. That's an asteroid. And the sun is conjunct Sirius. You know, the interesting thing about Sirius, Sirius is at the throat of the dog. It's there's a communication aspect here, but with Lilith in square here, and with Mercury sort of in square itself, and in quincunx with Pluto, the ability to speak, it's more like rage. You know, it's more like, like that. It's very emotional, and it's very dramatic. The interesting thing about Sirius here is there's an aspect that's, in my view, similar to Lilith. Its natives, in my view, the energy of Sirius, there's an aspect of being guardians. Astrology King tells us that it's about honor, renown, wealth, faith, devotion, compassion, but also resentment. In my view, this energy, which I feel very resonant with, I love Sirius, it says affirm enough. There's an Archangel Michael aspect to it where, you know, he can be such a supportive angel for us, archangel, and teacher for us as humans. But at some point, he faces the devil or the dragon and says, "You're done. Enough." And I feel that energy with Sirius. Sirius has the power to pacify nobles. It has immense creative talent. It produces truly great figures in every field of human endeavor. It has a great heart, and in my view, it supports life. And so with this square, with the yod pointing to the sacred home, with the guide stones falling, which expressed an anti-life message, this is incredible. It signifies a change in a dramatic way towards life, towards policies, activities, attitudes that support that. Now, how long this will take to unfold, I don't know. But that is what is sort of being grounded in the energy here. It's interesting because the sun is at 1416. Sirius is at 1423. 16 is the sign of you basically have two fives here, 14, 14. But 16 is the sign of the falling towers. And when I saw one of the videos of the bulldozer, you know, that had started to take apart the monument, I noticed that it stopped for a moment and left 2 of the slabs up. And immediately when I saw that, it reminded me of the towers in New York City that fell. And there was a poignancy there that, in my view, says that things have come full circle. That we're at your door. That's essentially, right? Whoever caused that, whatever these larger forces are, this bigger story, that the other side of that, the side that has courage, that's the side that advocates for humanity and for life, has shown up in a way that says, this is a turning point. This is a turning point for the energy. Zanaya, which is conjunct the moon, also has, interestingly, a talent for negotiating peace. But if you remember, Ronald Reagan said that peace comes through strength. This star can represent a good commander, one who knows when to call a halt to battle. The moon, with the moon, it's said to have shady or harsh aspects. So, you can wonder here, is one side telling the other side to stop? Is one side saying we're going to need to stop because of, how we're going to keep going? I mean, we don't know exactly what the details of these energies are, but we can consider the fullness of the meaning of all of these symbols, because there's a dual nature, there's a dual nature to most of these energies, although some of them, like Sirius, will come across as particularly positive or particularly negative. And it's interesting because I just was amazed when I read this. Boris Johnson resigned the night that this happened, and he has Sirius conjunct his midheaven. And it's so interesting because it just made me think that, we've talked about darkness hiding, darkness masquerading as light, but light also hides in the darkness. And we can look at events and say, I know what's happening. This guy thinks this and that person's from there and this is what's going on. And this is why I'm trying to give a somewhat neutral explanation of the energies that are present, because ultimately, there are subtleties and we don't always know who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, and even what all that is. Because we may have a lot of information that's just not available to us. It's interesting because Zanaya conjunct the moon also indicates a fruitful harvest. And it's just so interesting because this is about the third symbol that's come up in my various readings that indicate a fruitful harvest or a positive for agriculture. And yet there's all this negative information about agriculture. And it just makes me think that the natural state of the current energy supports a harvest of plenty. And therefore, if that's the case, to restrict that harvest would require a significant outpouring of resources, commitment, and energy if one was attempting to restrict it. So much so, I guess, that it becomes very obvious and regular people who wouldn't have been aware might notice. And certainly that is happening. Okay, let's just see what else we got here. Babylon is conjunct Algorab, another star, and it's in a wide orb with Algorab, but it's within the orb by 9 minutes, so I'm counting it as relevant. Algorab is represented by the crow, and pretty much every negative aspect of that can be expressed being human, it's in Algorab, okay? And it really calls us to personal integrity, and to use our personal integrity to guide us and stand in our own truth. This is the meaning, not of the star, but of the crow energy. That is the other name of this star. It's the crow. And so even though the star, right, reflects a darkness, it's important to remember that the darkness serves creation as well, that the darkness is also made by the Creator, even though there are living beings that have the choice, right, to move that way or not. That does exist as well. And because we have free will choice, we can do that, right, as human beings if one chooses. But this star is a sign of change. And when it's conjunct the moon, which it is at 7 degrees in the chart, it indicates accidents that are difficult to avoid. And so an accident certainly did happen here, whether it was some kind of, cause we can understand, or whether it was a natural earthquake or a beam of light, or who knows what it was, based upon the symbol in Vesta. That's why I said that. What was that? I'm going to just read it again. It was a shaft of light, metaphorically speaking, from the guardians at Sirius, right? So we've got the guardians at Sirius sending a shaft of light that benefits the human home. And here's Lilith and Mercury in trine with Vesta, supporting. So the square that Lilith is in here is to support the home, right? So that's why she's willing to engage in these challenging energies. And the same with Jupiter, because Jupiter ultimately is a benefic. And so darkness is turned to light. Our challenges are turned to our highest good through the grace of God. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about, and that was personal experience. I spoke with my friend Alex today, and we shared our experiences of yesterday, and both of us had a very challenging day yesterday. I barely slept last night. I may have slept for an hour, and when I was closing my eyes, I was constantly seeing very clearly images of demonic entities and astral figures. So in the astral or fourth dimension, I have clairvoyance, so I can see these things. But this is not typical, okay, because I have parameters I set for my energy field and so on and so forth. So for me to see something like that, it's very unusual. It's not going to be in my reality. And what we were talking about was, in what Alex asserted, and I agree with, is that these stones may have been a kind of a 4D anchor point, an astral anchor point, so that when they were broken down, that there may have been demonic forces released, right? Because sometimes these things are balled up. We do have a square, right, in the chart. We do have Varuna here. It's possible that there were entities that were sort of trapped, right, in that structure somehow. There certainly were a lot of, sixes and things related to that number, how the distance it is from a certain other key building that somewhat looks like it, and things like that. I think the numbers 6 were repeating on the structure and so on. Although the 6 itself is also a number of divinity, if you understand, its higher meaning. And let me show you something here, okay? I want to show you this. I forgot to mention this. I'm so glad I just remembered. And that is this. In the last chart that I did about the Schumann wave, okay, and not the wave, the energy stopping, right, the no data where it just stopped, and that was a marker in time, and I did a chart for that. I showed you the 6-pointed star in that chart. Well, look again, because we have two, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it on this because this will work better. Okay, so Because we have 2 grand trines here, you'll see in a second. Okay, so here we go, 1. Now see what happens with this 6-pointed star, okay? You'll recognize this as a holy, a pattern, a star pattern that is filled with divinity. This has 2 points here, but normally there'd just be 1 point. Okay, so do you see the 1? Actually, this has 7, but this should be a 1.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the reason that there's 2 is because you see here, Babylon, it's pulling everything this way, right? It's pulling everything off of the center, right? Oh, just pulling it like that. I do not consent. So this energy has just gotten so far out of balance that now everyone can feel it, right? Can sense it, can see it. And once you can see something, you can do something about it because, we have been unaware. We have been innocent in some cases, because in some cases we were unconscious. In some cases we were innocent. In some cases we were in denial of the evil that has been present within our Western societies. And in many cases, we just didn't know. We didn't know that that there were people around us that were capable of making some of the statements that we have heard from people in recent years. We didn't know that there were people capable of putting certain kinds of policies in place. We just couldn't imagine that could happen again in our, quote, civilized society. And so it's really a shift point. And I'm using the Spartan here because I wanted to show you, that energy. I talked about it on a recent Schumann, which has a Spartan warrior's face on it. But the Spartan principles and honoring of their own culture and self-protection, ability to defend themselves, their clearly defined principles and values, their clearly defined roles for men and women who work together to support each other and to honor and defend their culture, that goes so well with the energies of the chart, like Saturn in Aquarius, finding new ways to bring traditions forward with us. And it's shocking. I saw a post on this. I saw a post that directly, it was someone who was very, very, very liberal. And they had completely crafted a statement that when you looked at it, you were like, oh my goodness, this is a new way of saying and looking at something that actually is a traditional value that this person now clearly wants to bring forward. And I just thought, this is divine perfection to see this. It's incredible. It really amazes me. So, so we have Babylon pulling this way, okay? And so what the divinity says, what God says, because the yod is the finger of God, okay? God says, no, we're going this way, right? Nope, we're going this way. We're going to bring sacredness back to the home. We're going to heal our illusions and delusions in Pisces and Neptune, which is, solidly in Pisces right now. And we're going to heal these things. And we're going to write the 6-pointed star to call back the divine blueprint. And who can do this? The creator of all that is, right? God, the creator of all that is. And through the divinity within us, we can participate in co-creation with the Creator as human beings living with a living soul, right? We can act this out in our lives as we are guided, as we see fit. And it's an ultimate sort of sweetness that the finger of God structure in the astrology chart was first named when it pointed at Babylon eons ago at the time of its destruction.